Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? My name is Blitzer, and welcome back to another review for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012 show. Of course, I haven't done one of these in a little while, so you are going to see quite a few of these episode reviews go up one after another, just so that we get caught up, because of course, the last episode is going to be going live on April 27th, which is pretty gosh darn close, and that will be the last episode of course, Season 1, so do not worry, there have been approved for Season 2 and Season 3, which is fan-flippantastic, and I'm very excited to see that. But today we're going to be talking about episode number 12, which is, of course, It Came From The Depths, or, from what I know, it was actually titled Leatherhead in certain countries, which is pretty cool. Speaking of Leatherhead, that is the character that appears on this episode, and that is pretty gosh darn awesome. But before we get to that, let's talk about the opening of the show. And this really felt like like an episode that was from the 80s. I don't know, it just had this kind of a 80s feel to it, the way that the story was told, and there was so much great humor throughout the entire episode. It was probably my favorite episodes since episode 1 and 2. I think it was tremendous. I think it was really, really well done. I really loved the Metalhead episode as well, so they're kind of close to one another, but this was a excellent episode. There's a lot of kind of almost horror-like elements, with Leatherhead being a giant, of course, crocodile lizard monster, which was pretty gosh darn cool. Basically, the episode opens up with Michelangelo trying to serve up another one of his great dishes, and he thinks that mixing pizza with a milkshake is a great idea. Guess what? It's not. I'm pretty sure it's going to give you some bad stomach issues. Let's just put it that way. I'm not gonna go there anymore. But basically, he decides to call it a pea shake, and then it's like, not the best name, Mikey. Not the best name. But as he's introducing the shake, they hear a breaking news announcement that some man has been attacked in the sewage pipe. Of course, they turn their attention to Raphael, and they're like, hey, Raph, come on, why did you attack this guy? And he says, no, I didn't, because the news reports that it was a reptile, and that it was tough and such. So, and then they show some footage, and it's actually a giant crocodile man type thing, except not very much man. Well, he does have hands and legs, and he kind of walks on 2 legs, so kind of a mix of those. A very interesting species and a very interesting take. Of course, you're going to be seeing pictures of Leatherhead, so that's pretty cool. And basically, that's where the episode kind of goes. And the turtles set out to find out who is this menace, who's this new character, who's this new persona. And on top of that, they want to stop him because they don't want anyone to come into the sewers. Because, of course, why would you want even more attention down here and news reporters and such searching the sewers? Not the best idea. So they, of course, go after this particular case. And when they arrive, they actually find Leatherhead. They, of course, don't call him Leatherhead yet, because Mikey does that later in the episode. He names him, of course, which was very cool as well. But they find Leatherhead fighting the Kraang, and Michelangelo decides to go ahead and help him out. And after they help him, he's actually knocked out. So Michelangelo thinks it's going to be a good idea to bring him back to the sewers to help him out, you know. And of course, the other 3 brothers do not agree. And I really liked kind of the idea here on the episode, kind of playing the theme of not necessarily compassion, I mean somewhat, but the idea of don't judge a book by its cover. And Michelangelo kind of says, hey, you guys always complain that we're judged by just us being turtles and such, but look, we're doing the same thing to this guy, so isn't that not fair? So they agree, they bring him back home, and then once he's home, Michelangelo starts to develop kind of a friendly relationship with him, and they have a back and forth, but every time that the turtles say Kraang, they notice that he goes absolutely berserk. That is the one word you do not want to say around Leatherhead. And he goes berserk, and he starts attacking the turtles, and they can't understand why does he keep attacking them. Of course, later on, they figure out that it's basically the fact that every time you say Kraang, that triggers a mechanism, I guess, in his head that just gets him to become violent and absolutely cause a huge mess, and he starts beating up all the turtles and such. They get out of that alive, and then Donatello, Leonardo, and Raphael actually decide to go track down a power cell, or they didn't know what it was at the moment, but a technology that belongs to the Kraang. And they go back, and they go through this really cool maze with a bunch of kind of booby-trapped traps. That makes sense. But it kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones, and that's why I think that this episode really felt like there was kind of a lot of homages to different things. And after that, while they're returning and while they're on this adventure, Michelangelo and Leatherhead actually get to bond further. And Leatherhead falls in love with Michelangelo's pizza pasta soup, which is actually sounds pretty gosh darn delicious. I could try that. That sounds pretty good. And they bond over that. And then, of course, Michelangelo also names him. And it was kind of fun to see how Michelangelo, goes through the process of deciding how to name Leatherhead. He's kind of like, he checks out all his body parts. He's like, let me see. Well, your head is very leathery. Head leather. And he's like, no, Leatherhead. And then he names him, of course, Leatherhead, which was cool. I really love this kind of gimmick, how they rationalize all these silly names by having Michelangelo name all the villains and such. And I really love that. I think that it works, and I think that it's very characterful of Michelangelo, and at the same time, it works within the big scheme of things in the Turtle universe. So after all that, the Turtles return once again, and they want to question Leatherhead about this power cell that they found. But again, as soon as they mention Kraang, they get into a big swarming battle with, of course, Leatherhead. And when they show him the power cell, that's when he goes complete berserk. And he starts fighting them up to the point when Splinter shows up. And Splinter starts kicking a ton of butt. And he gets to really be a badass in this episode. There's no other way to describe him, but he really hands Leatherhead his butt. And you could see just how powerful Splinter is, which I really love, because a lot of times I felt like in the 80s show and in other iterations, Splinter is never shown to be, like, he's shown in certain situations, like in the 2003 show, he did fight Shredder a couple times and all that, but I feel like here he was really shown how much more powerful he is than the Turtles and such, and how much more credible he is at this point in time in the show, which I really liked. So that was very cool, and he beats up Leatherhead and tells him to leave. Now, as soon as Leatherhead leaves, Michelangelo decides to go ahead and track him down. So as Michelangelo is tracking him down and such, Michelangelo can't understand. Why the heck are you attacking us? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And that's when we actually hear Leatherhead's kind of story, and that's when we find out about the power cell. So the Leatherhead basically goes on to say that this is a power cell, of course, and this belongs to the Kraang, and this is actually what they use to get into this dimension, into this world. So when Leatherhead breaks out of a container where he was being kept by the Kraang, he ends up stealing this thing, and that's why he was so aggressive towards it, because he felt like he needs to protect it, and he felt like the Turtles might want to steal it from him or whatever it may be. He didn't trust them, which really is another kind of theme throughout this entire episode, is about trust. So that was kind of cool as well. But when the Turtles join him as well, and as they're listening to this entire story, the Kraang show up, and then we have a very cool scene. Basically, all four Turtles and Leatherhead are trapped in this subway cart, and while they're in there, of course, talking about this power cell, the Kraang start assaulting the truck and such, and it was really cool. Kind of, there's like saws coming in, and it felt like very kind of horror movie like, and it was a very cool moment there. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed the way that this episode was being told and such. So that was very cool. And as they're trying to deal with the situation, they're trying to figure out, hey, we could get away by using the power cell on the cart and getting the heck out of there alive. But they need a distraction, which is where Leatherhead kind of steps up and he says, hey, Michelangelo, you were the only one that trusted me, so I'm going to entrust you with this power cell. So he hands it over to Michelangelo, which again, I think that's great. It really kind of showcases that Michelangelo really is kind of yes, he's gullible and such, but he's also lovable. He's funny. He was really funny in this entire episode. So was Donatello. He had really, really great lines in the entire episode. But this episode really kind of showed you that Michelangelo is really kind of your ultimate good guy, where usually it would be Leonardo's role, but here Leonardo a lot of times is much more, he applies logic, you know what I mean? He's much more of a common sense leader instead of just kind of let's do the right thing, which has now become Michelangelo's role. And I think that it fits him much better than it fits Leonardo to be, yes, he's somewhat gullible, but he always kind of hopes to see the best in people, or in this case, in a giant lizard dude. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, I really loved the fight scenes in this episode. They really felt different to the other episodes, where The other episodes felt very martial arts like. This episode, except for the, of course, Splinter versus Leatherhead fight, it felt much more kind of raw. It felt like more of a brawl than a martial arts battle, which I really loved. I thought that was really cool, especially with like Leatherhead using a death roll in one point to squish Raphael into a corner. It was really cool. It's kind of like, that's what alligators would do when they chomp down and they start spinning around. That's a death roll, obviously. So, or you could call it a barrel roll just for fun. But it was very cool kind of to see a different dynamic of animation in this episode. So I really, really enjoyed that. And it was a very, very fresh change of pace. Bam! I don't know why I blanked there so much. I apologize for that. But there you have it, guys. That is going to conclude the episode review for It Came From the Depths. It was a very, very cool episode indeed. I really felt like it was very cool in terms of, taking you back and this, like, kind of, this is the perfect recipe for a TMNT episode to me, because not only did we progress the overall story with the Kraang, kind of we found out how they got here, what is this power cell, we kind of, are finding a little more and more about the Kraang, but at the same time, it focused on one of the turtles, and it told a fun story. There's a lot of great comedy, a lot of great humor throughout the entire episode, and on top of that, there was a great amount of action, so it really struck a perfect balance for me in being a great TMNT episode, which is why I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed this episode, and I found it super duper fun. I'm just hoping that we get to see Leatherhead further in the future. Basically, at the end of the episode, the turtles, of course, end up escaping, but Leatherhead stays in the sewers, or in the subway system, abandoned subway system, and he ends up stomping down on one of the Kraang robots. And that's basically kind of where the episode leaves off. So hopefully he'll be making more appearances down the line. But again, it was a great character introduction. It told a great story. And at the same time, we got a little bit of a background about Leatherhead. And we got a unique view into the minds of the turtles. And Splinter being a badass doesn't help. Doesn't hurt at all. So there you have it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit that like button. On top of that, do not forget to voice your opinion on episode number 12. It Came From the Depths. Of course, a very, very fantastic episode of Ninja Turtles indeed. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks all for watching this episode review. You guys have been a fan-flipping-tastic audience, and I'll see you next time with the next episode review, which is actually going to be I Monster, which is quite an awesome episode indeed. So if you're interested in Rat King, make sure to tune into the next review. Peace out, guys. Thanks for watching this. Of course, share the video with your family and friends so that they can voice their opinion as well, and favorite the video as well. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out, and see ya laters.